crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls, casting soft light across the marble floors. Lisa moved between the tables with practiced ease, balancing a tray of champagne glasses that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She'd been doing this for 3 years now, and she knew the routine by heart. Smile politely, don't make eye contact for too long, refill the glasses before they're empty, be helpful but invisible. That's what the wealthy guests wanted, someone to serve them without really being there. Tonight was the big gala at the Grandview Country Club, the annual event where the richest people in the city gathered to write checks for charity and feel good about themselves. Lisa didn't mean that in a cruel way. Some of them genuinely cared. But after 3 years of serving at these events, she'd learned to read people pretty well. She watched Mrs. Chen adjust her diamond necklace for the 3rd time, clearly wanting someone to notice it. Mr. Patterson was already on his 4th glass of scotch, getting louder with each sip. The mayor's wife was pretending to listen to a conversation while checking her phone under the table. These people were just people, Lisa reminded herself. They had money, sure, but they got nervous and bored and insecure just like everyone else. The difference was that they never had to worry about whether their car would start in the morning, or if they could afford to fix the leak in their bathroom, or if they should skip dinner to save money for next month's rent. Lisa caught her reflection in one of the tall mirrors lining the ballroom. Her uniform was crisp and clean. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun. She looked professional, presentable, like she belonged here even though she absolutely didn't. 7 years ago, she'd received a letter that changed her life, a full scholarship to one of the best music schools in the country, Juilliard, the dream school for any serious musician. Lisa had screamed when she opened that envelope. She'd called everyone she knew. Her mom had cried happy tears and hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. For weeks, Lisa had walked around in a daze, imagining her future. She'd pictured herself on stage performing in concert halls, maybe teaching music someday. She'd spent her entire childhood working toward that moment, practicing piano 4 hours a day after school, entering competitions, giving up weekends with friends to perfect difficult pieces. Then her mom got sick, not regular sick, the kind of sick that empties bank accounts and fills hospital rooms. Cancer, the word that changes everything. Suddenly, scholarship or no scholarship, New York City felt impossible. Her mom needed her. The medical bills piled up faster than Lisa could count them. Insurance covered some of it, but not enough. Never enough. So Lisa had made a choice. She'd written a polite email to the admissions office, thanking them for the opportunity but explaining she couldn't attend. She'd found a job at the country club because it paid better than most restaurants. She'd put her dreams in a box and shoved them to the back of her mind. That was 7 years ago. Her mom had fought hard for 3 years before she lost the battle. Lisa still missed her every single day. The apartment felt too quiet now. The upright piano her mom had saved for years to buy used to sit in the corner of the living room. Lisa had sold it 6 months ago to pay off the last of the medical debt. She hadn't played since. Well, that wasn't entirely true. Sometimes, late at night when she couldn't sleep, she'd press her fingers against the kitchen counter and imagine the keys beneath them. She'd hear the music in her head, feel the vibration of the notes. But it wasn't the same. It would never be the same. "Excuse me, miss?" A woman's voice pulled Lisa from her thoughts. "Could we get more wine at table 7? Lisa smiled. "Of course. Right away." She moved through the crowded ballroom, weaving between clusters of conversations about stock markets and vacation homes and which private school was best for gifted children. The piano on the stage caught her eye. It was a beautiful instrument. A Steinway grand piano, black and glossy under the stage lights. Nobody was playing it yet. The hired pianist was supposed to arrive at 8, and it was already 8:15. Lisa felt a familiar ache in her chest. She knew that piano. Well, not that specific one, but she knew its voice. Steinways had a particular warmth to their sound, a richness that cheaper pianos couldn't match. She'd played one exactly twice in her life, both times at competitions when she was younger. Both times she'd felt like she was touching something sacred. "This is unacceptable," she heard someone say sharply. Lisa glanced over and saw the event coordinator, Rebecca, talking on her phone with a stressed expression. What do you mean stuck in traffic? This is the biggest event of the year." Lisa pretended not to listen, but she couldn't help it. Apparently the pianist's car had broken down on the highway. He was waiting for a tow truck. He might not make it at all. Rebecca's face had gone pale. Mr. Wellington, the gala's main sponsor, was not a patient man. He'd donated $500,000 to this event and expected everything to be perfect. A gala without music? That wouldn't go over well. Lisa refilled wine glasses and cleared empty plates, but her eyes kept drifting back to that piano. Her fingers tingled. She could feel the ghost of the keys beneath them, could hear the music that wasn't playing. It had been so long. Too long. She walked past the stage 3 times in the next 10 minutes. Each time the pull got stronger. The piano seemed to be calling to her, which was ridiculous. Pianos didn't call to people, but still she felt it. A magnetic draw, like standing at the edge of a cliff and feeling the urge to jump. Not because you wanted to fall, but because some wild part of you wondered what it would feel like to fly. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wellington's voice boomed through the microphone. He was standing on stage now, looking uncomfortable. It appears our pianist has encountered some difficulties this evening. We'll be proceeding without musical accompaniment for tonight's program. A wave of disappointed murmurs rolled through the crowd. Lisa saw the mayor lean over to his wife and whisper something. A few people checked their phones, clearly losing interest. This was not good. Without the music, without the atmosphere, people would start leaving early. The charity auction later in the evening would suffer. All that planning, all that money raised, potentially wasted because of one broken-down car. Lisa set down her tray on a service table. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Her hands were shaking. This was crazy. This was completely insane. She was a waitress. She had no business walking up on that stage. These people hadn't paid hundreds of dollars per plate to hear the help perform, but her feet were moving anyway. One step, then another. She smoothed down her uniform with trembling hands. Rebecca tried to intercept her. "Miss, what are you doing? You can't—" Lisa barely heard her. She was already climbing the steps to the stage, her legs feeling like they might give out at any second. The piano bench was cool beneath her as she sat down. The keys gleamed under the lights. 300 pairs of eyes turned to stare at her. The room had gone completely silent. She could feel their confusion, their judgment. Who was this waitress who thought she could just sit down and play? Did she even know how? Was this some kind of joke? Lisa closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Her fingers found their positions on the keys, and then for the first time in 6 months she began to play. The first note rang out clear and pure, cutting through the silence like a bell. Lisa's fingers pressed down on the keys and suddenly everything else disappeared. The judgmental stares, the whispers, the fear coursing through her veins, all of it melted away. There was only the music. She'd chosen Chopin, Nocturne in E-flat major, a piece she'd played hundreds of times as a teenager, back when she still believed her future held concert halls and standing ovations. Her muscle memory took over and her hands moved across the keys like they'd never stopped, like the 6 months of silence had never happened. The melody was soft at first, almost hesitant. Delicate notes that floated through the air like whispered secrets. Lisa could feel the piano responding to her touch, the way a good instrument always does. It wasn't just about pressing keys. It was about coaxing emotion from wood and wire, about making something mechanical feel alive. Behind her closed eyelids, she wasn't in the country club ballroom anymore. She was 17 again, sitting in her childhood bedroom with the afternoon sun streaming through the window. Her mom was in the kitchen making dinner, humming along to the music. Everything was simple then. Everything made sense. The piece grew more complex, the left hand adding depth while the right hand danced above it. Lisa's fingers moved faster, more confident now. She'd forgotten how good this felt. How right. Playing piano had always been more than just a skill or a career goal. It was the way she made sense of the world, the way she processed joy and grief and everything in between. She transitioned into the next section, where the melody becomes almost heartbreaking. This was the part she'd always struggled with as a student. Her teacher used to say she played it too technically, too perfectly. You need to feel it, he'd told her. Let yourself break a little. Back then, she hadn't understood what he meant. She'd been young and optimistic, untouched by real loss. But now she understood. Now she had grief to pour into the music. She had disappointment and sacrifice and years of wondering what if. She had her mom's empty chair at the kitchen table and medical bills and a sold piano that left a dusty outline on her living room floor. Lisa let all of it flow through her fingers into the keys. The notes became heavier, richer, full of everything she'd been holding inside for months. Years, maybe. She wasn't just playing anymore. She was telling her story, the one she'd never spoken aloud to anyone. The room had gone completely still. If Lisa had opened her eyes, she would have seen 300 people frozen in place, champagne glasses forgotten, conversations abandoned mid-sentence. She would have seen Mr. Wellington standing near the stage with his mouth slightly open, his earlier impatience replaced by something like awe. She would have seen Rebecca, the event coordinator, with tears streaming down her face, not even bothering to wipe them away. But Lisa's eyes stayed closed. She was somewhere else entirely, lost in the music, in the memories, in the person she used to be and the person she'd become. She moved seamlessly into Debussy's Clair de Lune, another piece from her past, another ghost she'd been carrying around. The opening notes were like moonlight made audible, soft and silvery and almost impossibly gentle. This was her mom's favorite piece. She used to sit on the couch while Lisa practiced, closing her eyes and smiling. "It sounds like peace," she'd said once. "Like everything's going to be okay." Lisa's throat tightened, but she kept playing. Her fingers knew the way, even as tears started sliding down her cheeks. She didn't try to stop them. What was the point? She was already exposed, already vulnerable in front of all these strangers. Might as well let them see the truth. The middle section of Clair de Lune builds gradually, the gentle opening giving way to something more passionate, more urgent. Lisa leaned into it, her whole body moving with the music. This was what she'd given up. This connection, this feeling of being completely present in a single moment. She'd traded it for hospital bills and night shifts and an empty apartment. Had it been worth it? She didn't know. She'd never know. Her mom was gone either way. The music wouldn't have saved her. But sometimes, late at night, Lisa wondered if she'd made the wrong choice. If maybe her mom would have wanted her to go to New York to chase the dream, even if it meant being far away during those final years. The piece reached its peak, the melody soaring above rolling waves of accompaniment, before gradually settling back down into that peaceful moonlit opening theme. Lisa played the final notes slowly, letting them fade into silence. She held her hands above the keys for a moment, not quite ready to let go. Then she heard it, a single clap. Then another. Then the entire room erupted. Lisa's eyes snapped open. The reality of what she'd just done crashed over her like a wave. She'd abandoned her post. She'd walked onto the stage without permission. She'd played the piano in front of 300 of the wealthiest, most influential people in the city, while wearing a waitress uniform with a name tag. The applause was thunderous. People were standing up. Actually standing. Lisa turned around on the piano bench, her heart racing all over again. Faces that had looked through her for 3 years were now staring at her with something that looked like wonder, or maybe shock. She couldn't quite tell. Mr. Wellington was the first to reach the stage. Lisa's stomach dropped. This was it. She was fired. Maybe worse. She'd embarrassed the club, made a scene, crossed about a dozen professional boundaries. She stood up quickly, smoothing her uniform, trying to remember how to breathe. But Mr. Wellington wasn't angry. His face was flushed, his eyes bright. He extended his hand to her and Lisa shook it automatically, her mind still spinning. "That was extraordinary," he said, loud enough for nearby people to hear. His grip was firm, almost too firm. "Who are you?" The question shouldn't have been difficult, but Lisa found herself struggling to answer. Who was she? The waitress? The failed musician? The girl who gave up her dreams? The daughter who stayed? "I'm Lisa," she managed finally. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. "I work here. I serve at events." "Not anymore, you don't." The voice came from behind Mr. Wellington. A woman pushed through the growing crowd around the stage. She was middle-aged, elegant, with silver-streaked hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. Lisa recognized her vaguely. She'd served her wine earlier in the evening. Some kind of arts patron, if she remembered correctly. "I'm Catherine Chen," the woman said, and Lisa's heart skipped. Catherine Chen, the conductor of the City Symphony Orchestra, one of the most respected musical directors in the region. "You're performing with us. Friday night." "I won't take no for an answer." Lisa opened her mouth, but no words came out. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen. Not to people like her. But Catherine was already pulling out her phone, typing something. "Give me your number. We need to rehearse. Do you know the Rachmaninoff?" "Never mind, we'll figure it out." Can you be at the concert hall tomorrow at 10? More people were surrounding her now. Business cards appeared in her hands. Someone said something about a recording studio. Another person mentioned a performance space downtown. Everyone was talking at once, and Lisa couldn't process any of it. She looked past them all to where Rebecca stood, still near the service table where Lisa had abandoned her tray. Their eyes met across the crowded room. Rebecca's expression was unreadable. But Lisa saw her turn and walk toward the back offices, and her stomach sank. She'd just changed everything, and she had no idea if it was for better or worse. Lisa couldn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment over and over. The feel of the keys under her fingers. The sound of the applause. Catherine Chen's face when she'd said those impossible words. "You're performing with us." Her phone sat on the nightstand loaded with business cards she'd photographed because her hands had been too full to hold them all. Record producers, music school directors, a talent agent, a woman who owned an arts foundation. They all wanted to talk to her. They all saw something in her performance that made them pull out their wallets and their contacts and their opportunities. But she kept thinking about Rebecca's face. That unreadable expression, the way she'd walked toward the offices without saying a word. At 3 in the morning, Lisa finally gave up on sleep. She made coffee and sat at her kitchen table, the one that wobbled unless you put a folded napkin under the left leg. This was her life. This small apartment with its leaky faucet and thin walls, her neighbor's TV humming through the wall, the distant sound of traffic from the highway. This was real. The gala, the applause, Catherine Chen, that felt like a dream. Like something that had happened to someone else. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Lisa, this is Catherine Chen. Rehearsal tomorrow at 10 a.m. City Concert Hall. Stage entrance. Don't be late. Bring comfortable shoes." Lisa stared at the message for a full minute. It was real. This was actually happening. She typed back a response, deleted it, typed again. Finally settled on something simple. "I'll be there. Thank you." 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Don't thank me yet. We work hard. See you tomorrow." Lisa set the phone down with shaking hands. She had 8 hours until rehearsal. She needed to figure out what to wear, how to get there, what pieces they might ask her to play. She needed to practice, but she didn't have a piano anymore. That empty spot in her living room felt bigger than ever. She was so lost in her thoughts that she almost missed the second buzz. This time it was an email. The subject line made her stomach drop. Termination of employment. Effective immediately. Lisa clicked it open even though she already knew what it would say. The words blurred together. Abandonment of duties during scheduled shift. Unprofessional conduct. Violation of employee code. Final paycheck will be mailed. There it was. She'd been fired. She'd known it was coming, had felt it in the air when Rebecca walked away. But seeing it in writing made it real in a way that hurt more than she'd expected. 3 years at that job. 3 years of smiling politely and being invisible and saving every penny she could. Gone in 15 minutes because she'd sat at a piano. Because she'd remembered who she used to be. Who she maybe still was underneath the uniform and the exhaustion. Lisa closed her laptop and put her head in her hands. The sun was starting to come up outside her window, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Beautiful and completely indifferent to the fact that her life had just fallen apart and rearranged itself into something she didn't recognize. At 9:30, she stood outside the city concert hall in the only nice clothes she owned. Black pants, a white blouse, flats that pinched her toes. She'd pulled her hair back the same way she always did for work, then let it down, then pulled it back again. She looked like she was going to a job interview, which in a way she was. The stage entrance was around the back, down an alley that smelled like rain and old brick. Lisa found the door and knocked, her heart hammering. A young guy with headphones around his neck opened it. He looked her up and down. "You're the waitress?" The word stung even though it was accurate. Past tense now. "I'm Lisa. Catherine asked me to come." He stepped aside to let her in. "Yeah, she told us. Everyone's talking about it. You're either really brave or really crazy." He grinned. "Maybe both." "I'm Tyler, stage manager." "Come on, they're waiting." Lisa followed him through a maze of hallways. The walls were covered with posters from past performances. Famous musicians she'd only read about. Opera singers. Ballet companies. This was the real deal. These were the stages that mattered, the ones that launched careers and made reputations. What was she doing here? They emerged into the concert hall itself, and Lisa forgot to breathe. The space was massive, rows and rows of red velvet seats rising up into shadows. The stage was enormous, the acoustics designed to carry every note to the furthest balcony. And there, in the center of it all, was a piano that made the one at the country club look like a toy. Catherine stood near the edge of the stage, talking to a violinist. She saw Lisa and waved her over. "Good, you're here. We have a lot to cover and not much time." Lisa climbed the steps to the stage on legs that felt like jelly. Up close, Catherine was even more intimidating. She had the kind of presence that filled a room, made you stand up straighter without meaning to. "Have you performed with an orchestra before?" Catherine asked. "No, I mean in high school once. A small community thing." Catherine nodded like she'd expected as much. "Friday's program is already set, but we're adding you to the second half. You'll do a solo piece, then join us for a concerto movement. Nothing too complex. We'll keep it to 15 minutes total." She paused. "Can you handle that?" Lisa wanted to say yes, wanted to sound confident and professional, but the words that came out were, "I don't have access to a piano. I can't practice. You'll practice here. Tyler will give you a schedule. We have rehearsal rooms in the basement. You can use them whenever the hall isn't booked." Catherine studied her face. "You're scared?" It wasn't a question. Lisa didn't bother denying it. "Terrified. Good. Fear means you care. Fear means you'll work hard." Catherine gestured to the piano. "Play something for me. Not what you did last night. Something else. Something that shows me your range." Lisa walked to the piano and sat down. Her hands were sweating. She wiped them on her pants and placed them on the keys. What should she play? What would prove she belonged here? She started with Bach. A fugue, precise and mathematical and unforgiving. No room for error, no place to hide behind emotion. Just pure technical skill. Her fingers flew across the keys, and she felt Catherine watching, evaluating, judging. When she finished, Catherine was silent for a long moment. The violinist had stopped tuning his instrument. Even Tyler had put down his phone. Lisa's heart sank. It wasn't good enough. Of course it wasn't. What had she been thinking? "You were trained well," Catherine said finally. "Classically trained properly, but you're rusty. You haven't been playing regularly." Lisa nodded, her throat tight. "I sold my piano 6 months ago. Why?" "Medical bills. My mom was sick." Catherine's expression softened slightly, but only slightly. "I'm sorry. But that's in the past. Right now I need to know if you're serious about this. This isn't a hobby. This isn't something you do when you have spare time. This is work, hard work, endless work. Can you do that?" Lisa thought about the termination email, about her empty apartment and emptier bank account, about the piano-shaped hole in her living room and the dream-shaped hole in her life, about her mom, who used to sit on the couch and listen with her eyes closed, saying it sounded like peace. "Yes," she said, and she meant it. Catherine smiled for the first time. "Then let's begin." The next 3 days were a blur of rehearsals, nerves, and very little sleep. Lisa practiced 8 hours a day in the basement rehearsal rooms, her fingers aching, her back stiff from hunching over the keys. Catherine was a demanding teacher. She'd stop Lisa mid-phrase and make her play the same 3 bars 20 times until they were perfect. Nothing was good enough. Every note had to be exactly right. "Again," Catherine would say, her arms crossed. "You're rushing the tempo. Feel the space between the notes. Music isn't just about what you play, it's about what you don't play." Lisa would start over, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cool basement air. Her brain felt like it might explode from concentration. But slowly, gradually, the piece began to take shape. It started to sound less like individual notes and more like something whole, something beautiful. On Wednesday afternoon, Tyler knocked on the rehearsal room door. "Hey, you might want to see this." He held up his phone. The screen showed a video with over 2 million views. Lisa leaned closer and felt her stomach drop. It was her, playing piano at the gala. Someone had filmed the entire thing and posted it online. The title read, "Waitress stuns wealthy elite with incredible piano performance." Lisa grabbed the phone and scrolled through the comments. There were thousands of them. Most were positive. People calling her talented, inspiring, amazing, but others made her uncomfortable. This is what happens when the rich ignore the people serving them. She showed those snobs what real talent looks like. I hope she got fired. She was supposed to be working, not performing. Bet they feel stupid now for treating her like she was invisible. Tyler took his phone back. You're kind of famous now. Catherine says ignore it. Focus on Friday, but I thought you should know. After he left, Lisa sat alone in the rehearsal room staring at the piano. Famous. The word felt strange and wrong. She wasn't famous. She was just a person who'd made an impulsive decision and somehow hadn't completely destroyed her life in the process. Yet, that night, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Friend requests from people she'd never met. Messages from news outlets wanting interviews. An email from a talk show producer. Everyone wanted a piece of the story. The inspiring underdog. The hidden talent. The Cinderella story. But nobody asked what it actually felt like. Nobody asked about the termination email, or the fact that her rent was due in 2 weeks and she had no idea how she'd pay it. Nobody asked if she was scared out of her mind about Friday's performance. If she lay awake at night wondering if she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. On Thursday morning, Lisa arrived at the concert hall to find a small crowd of reporters outside. She tried to walk past them head down, but they recognized her anyway. Lisa, how does it feel to go viral? Are you upset about being fired from the country club? Is it true you turned down Juilliard to take care of your sick mother? That last question stopped her cold. How did they know that? She hadn't told anyone except Catherine, and only because it had come up during a conversation about her training. Someone must have dug into her background, found old records, turned her private grief into public content. Lisa pushed through the crowd without answering and slipped inside the stage door. Tyler was waiting. Sorry about that. They've been out there since 7. Security's trying to clear them out. Inside the concert hall, the full orchestra was assembled for the first time. 50 musicians tuning instruments, chatting, laughing. They all went quiet when Lisa walked in. She felt their eyes on her, assessing, judging. The viral video girl, the waitress who thought she could play with the professionals. Catherine clapped her hands. All right, everyone. This is Lisa. She's joining us for tomorrow's performance. Let's make her feel welcome and show her how we work. From the top of the second movement, please. The rehearsal was intense. Playing alone was one thing. Playing with an entire orchestra was something else entirely. Lisa had to listen to 50 other instruments while keeping her own part tight. She had to watch Catherine's conducting, follow the tempo changes, blend with the strings, support the woodwinds. It was like learning a new language while riding a bicycle for the first time. She messed up. A lot. She came in early on a transition. She played too loud during a soft passage. Once she completely lost her place and had to stop, her face burning with embarrassment. But Catherine just nodded and said, again. This time, listen to the cellos. They'll bring you in. By the end of rehearsal, Lisa was exhausted. Her hands hurt. Her head hurt. But the final run-through had been clean. Not perfect, but clean. Good enough that Catherine had actually smiled. Better, she'd said. Tomorrow, make it great. As the orchestra members packed up their instruments, a few of them approached Lisa. The cellist, an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes, touched her shoulder. You're doing fine. First time with an orchestra is always rough. You'll be wonderful tomorrow. A violinist nodded in agreement. That video didn't do you justice. You're even better in person. Their kindness made Lisa want to cry. She'd been so worried about being judged, about not belonging, that she'd forgotten musicians were just people too. People who remembered what it felt like to be nervous and new and scared of messing up. That evening, Lisa's phone rang. A number she didn't recognize, but the area code was local. She almost didn't answer, tired of reporters and strangers. But something made her pick up. Hello? Is this Lisa? A man's voice, older, formal. This is Richard Wellington, from the gala. Lisa's heart skipped. Mr. Wellington, the man whose event she'd crashed, the man who'd probably approved her termination. Yes, this is Lisa. There was a pause. I wanted to call personally. I've been following the news coverage and I owe you an apology. Lisa sat down on her couch, confused. An apology? The country club's decision to terminate your employment was made without my input. Had I known, I would have objected. What you did Saturday night was not unprofessional. It was extraordinary. And the way the club responded was, frankly, embarrassing. Oh, Lisa said, not sure what else to say. I've spoken with the board. We'd like to offer you your position back with a raise. And more importantly, I'd like to personally sponsor your return to music school. Full tuition, living expenses, whatever you need. Lisa's mind went blank. She heard the words, but they didn't make sense. I don't understand. You gave up your dreams to take care of your mother. That's admirable. But you shouldn't have to give them up forever. I have the means to help, and I'd like to. No strings attached. You can finish your degree, pursue your career. You deserve that chance. It was everything she'd wanted 7 years ago. A scholarship. A path back to the life she'd imagined. Her dream, handed to her on a silver platter by a man who felt guilty about a viral video and bad press. Lisa looked around her small apartment. At the empty space where the piano used to be. At the kitchen table with the wobbly leg. At the life she'd built from the scraps of her broken dreams. Mr. Wellington, I appreciate the offer. I really do, but I need to think about it. Of course. Take your time. My office will send over the details. After he hung up, Lisa sat in silence. Outside her window, the city hummed with its usual evening sounds. Somewhere, people were living their normal lives, working regular jobs, paying rent, not becoming viral sensations or getting called by millionaires with life-changing offers. Tomorrow she would perform with a professional orchestra. Tomorrow her life might change again, but tonight she just needed to breathe. She closed her eyes and imagined the piano keys under her fingers. Imagined the music flowing through her. And for the first time in days, she felt something like peace. Friday arrived too fast and too slow at the same time. Lisa woke up at dawn, her stomach in knots. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw herself on stage, forgetting the notes, freezing in front of hundreds of people. The nightmare versions played on repeat in her head. She made coffee but couldn't drink it. Made toast but couldn't eat it. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. This was different from the gala. That had been impulse, adrenaline, a moment of temporary insanity. This was planned, expected. She'd have no excuse if she failed. At 2 p.m, she arrived at the concert hall for the final sound check. The building was buzzing with activity. Ushers in black vests preparing the lobby. Lighting technicians adjusting spots. The orchestra warming up backstage. Everything felt bigger and more real than it had during rehearsals. Catherine found her in the green room, staring at herself in the mirror. Lisa was wearing a black dress that Catherine had loaned her. Simple, elegant, professional. She looked like a real musician. She just didn't feel like one. You're going to do fine, Catherine said. What if I mess up? What if I freeze? Catherine sat down next to her. Then you'll be human. Every performer makes mistakes. The difference between amateurs and professionals is that professionals keep going. The audience doesn't have the sheet music. They don't know if you hit a wrong note unless you show them with your face. That's not as comforting as you think it is. Catherine laughed. You'll be fine. You've practiced. You're prepared. Now you just have to trust yourself. She stood up and headed toward the door, then paused. Your mother would be proud, you know. What you did for her, what you're doing now. All of it. After Catherine left, Lisa sat alone with those words. Would her mom be proud? She'd always supported Lisa's music. Had sacrificed so much to pay for lessons and competitions. But she'd also been practical. She would have understood why Lisa had to step away. She would have been okay with it. But would she have wanted Lisa to give up music forever? Probably not. At 7 o'clock, the concert hall doors opened to the public. Lisa peeked through the backstage curtain and watched people flood in. The seats filled up quickly. She scanned the crowd and felt her heart jump. There in the third row was Mr. Wellington. Next to him sat several people she recognized from the country club. The mayor and his wife, Mrs. Patterson, even Rebecca, the event coordinator, was there in the back, her expression unreadable as always. Tyler appeared at her elbow. Sold-out crowd. There are people standing in the back. Catherine says we haven't had this kind of turnout in years. He grinned. No pressure or anything. Lisa felt like she might throw up. The first half of the concert passed in a blur. Lisa waited backstage, listening to the orchestra perform pieces by Mozart and Beethoven. They sounded incredible, professional, polished, everything she wasn't. What was she doing here? She was a waitress who'd had one viral moment. That didn't make her qualified to share a stage with these musicians. Intermission came and went. Then Catherine was calling places for the second half. This was it. Lisa walked to the stage entrance, her legs feeling disconnected from her body. The orchestra members were taking their seats. The audience was settling back in, programs rustling, conversations fading to whispers. Catherine touched Lisa's shoulder. Remember, they're already on your side. They came here hoping you'd be amazing. Don't disappoint them. The lights dimmed. The audience went silent. Lisa walked onto the stage and the applause started before she even reached the piano. It was warm, encouraging, the kind of applause that says, "We're rooting for you." But it made her more nervous, not less. More people to let down. She sat at the piano bench and adjusted her position. The spotlight was hot on her face. She could barely see the audience beyond the first few rows. Just shapes and shadows and the occasional glint of light reflecting off glasses or jewelry. Her hands found their position on the keys. She took a breath. Then another, and then she began to play. The piece was Rachmaninoff, the second movement of his second piano concerto. It started soft, almost fragile. Just the piano alone, a simple melody that builds slowly. Lisa focused on the keys, on the feel of them beneath her fingers. Not on the audience, not on the cameras she knew were recording. Just the music. The orchestra came in gently, strings adding depth beneath her melody. Lisa listened to them, adjusted her dynamics to blend. It was like a conversation, the piano and the orchestra speaking back and forth. She'd never experienced anything like it. Playing alone was one thing, but this was something else entirely. The movement built gradually, getting more passionate, more intense. Lisa leaned into it, her earlier fear dissolving into the music. This was why she'd fallen in love with piano in the first place. Not for the applause or the recognition. For this feeling, this sense of being part of something bigger than herself. She hit the climax of the piece, the piano and orchestra together in this powerful, sweeping moment that filled the entire concert hall. Her fingers flew across the keys. She wasn't thinking anymore. She was just feeling, just playing, just being completely present in the music. And then gradually it softened. The orchestra pulled back. The piano returned to that simple, fragile melody from the beginning. Lisa played the final notes slowly, carefully letting them fade into silence. For a moment, nothing. Complete stillness. Lisa held her breath. Then the applause erupted. Louder than at the gala. Louder than she'd ever heard. People were on their feet, clapping, cheering. Lisa stood and bowed, her legs shaky, her eyes stinging with tears she refused to let fall. Catherine was beaming from the conductor's podium. The orchestra members were standing too, applauding. The cellist who'd been kind to her during rehearsal had tears on her face. Tyler was giving her a thumbs up from the wings. Lisa bowed again and walked off stage. But the applause didn't stop. It got louder. Catherine gestured for her to go back out. Lisa returned to the stage, overwhelmed, and bowed one more time. The standing ovation continued for what felt like forever. In the front row, Mr. Wellington was clapping with tears streaming down his face. Next to him, the mayor and his wife were on their feet. Even Rebecca was standing, a small smile on her usually serious face. These people who'd seen her as invisible for 3 years were seeing her now. Really seeing her. After the concert, the green room was packed with people. Musicians congratulating her. Audience members who'd waited to meet her. A reporter from the city paper asking for an interview. A representative from a recording label wanting to talk about opportunities. But the person Lisa found herself looking for was Catherine. She found her near the stage door, packing up her things. "You did it," Catherine said simply. "I couldn't have without you. Without all of this." Lisa paused. "Mr. Wellington offered to pay for music school. Full scholarship, everything, I heard. Are you going to take it?" Lisa looked back toward the stage, toward the piano sitting under a spotlight in the empty hall. 6 months ago, she'd sold her piano and thought that chapter of her life was over. Last week, she'd been serving drinks and trying to be invisible. Today, she'd performed with a professional orchestra to a sold-out crowd. Life didn't move in straight lines. Dreams didn't have expiration dates. "I don't know yet," she said honestly, "but I think I'm going to figure it out." 3 months later, Lisa stood in front of a run-down building in the neighborhood where she'd grown up. The windows were boarded up, the paint peeling. But it had good bones, high ceilings, good acoustics, room for at least 30 students. She'd turned down Mr. Wellington's offer to go back to school. Not out of pride or fear, but because she'd realized something during that performance. She didn't need to be on the biggest stages or have the fanciest degrees. She needed to do work that mattered. Mr. Wellington had understood. He'd redirected his sponsorship money to help her open the community music school instead. Free lessons for kids who couldn't afford them, instruments for students who didn't have access, a space where talent could be nurtured regardless of someone's bank account. Lisa still performed occasionally. Guest spots with the symphony, private events, enough to pay the bills and keep her skills sharp. But most of her time went to the school, to teaching kids who reminded her of herself at that age, full of dreams and potential and hope. The piano from the concert hall sat in the main studio. Catherine had helped arrange for the symphony to donate it. Every time Lisa sat down to play, she thought about that night. About the gala where she'd stopped being invisible. About the choice she'd made to step up to the piano even though she was terrified. She thought about her mom who would have loved this. Who would have sat in the corner during lessons smiling with her eyes closed, saying it sounded like peace. And it did. Finally, it really did.